My eyes met his in the bathroom mirror. Tyler was standing in the doorway I'd forgotten to lock, his face a mix of surprise and something deeper that I couldn't quite figure out. I froze for a second, embarrassment flooding me, but then I noticed that he didn't look away. He didn't run. He didn't apologize. He just stayed there, watching me with an intensity I'd never seen before in my little brother. Leave your like if you've ever experienced a moment when one simple look changed everything between you and someone special. My name is Daniel. I'm 24, and I work as an accountant at a mid-sized company in Chicago. After 3 years away from home, buried in financial reports and endless spreadsheets, I decided to take 2 weeks off to visit my parents and my little brother. I needed that break, that reconnection with my roots. The house was still the same. The smell of my mom Jessica's apple pie filling the living room, my dad David's tools scattered around in the garage, and that comforting feeling of familiarity. But something was different. Tyler, my little brother I'd left behind when he was 12, was now a 17-year-old young man with broad shoulders, a defined jawline, and a presence that filled the hallway when we met for the first time. "Danny, wow, you look different," he said, eyeing me with a shy smile. "Look who's talking. Where's that annoying kid who used to cling to me?" I replied, trying to hide my surprise at how grown up he now was. My routine at home quickly fell into place. I'd wake up early to run around the neighborhood, help my dad with some little repairs around the house, and spend my afternoons revisiting old habits. The view from the back porch overlooking the lake was therapeutic, the sunlight shimmering on the water as I sipped on a coffee. It was on that porch that Tyler started joining me, bringing up questions about college, careers, and independent living. "So what's it like living alone?" he asked on a particularly hot afternoon. Freeing and scary at the same time. "You miss home, but you also learn a lot about yourself." I noticed he was soaking in every word, his green eyes fixed on mine with an almost magnetic attention. There was a connection growing between us, different from the teasing sibling relationship we had as kids. It was deeper, more complicated. On the third day, our mom announced during dinner, "Your dad and I are going to visit Aunt Martha this weekend. You'll be fine on your own, right?" Tyler immediately replied, "Sure, Mom. I'm 17 after all." Something in his tone, the way his eyes met mine for just a fraction of a second, sent shivers down my spine. The first day alone was peaceful. We ordered pizza, watched horror movies that our parents hate, and talked late into the night. That's when the barriers started to fall. "You know, I've always admired you," Tyler confessed, his face partly lit by the TV. "When you left for college, I really missed you." "I missed you too, Ty." Those simple words carried a weight I hadn't expected. A comfortable silence settled between us, filled only by the low sound of a movie we weren't even watching anymore. The next morning, I woke up feeling an inner conflict eating me up. The conversations with Tyler seemed loaded with hidden meanings, with looks that lasted a second longer than usual. I tried to dismiss those thoughts, convincing myself I was misinterpreting the situation. That's when I decided to take a shower to clear my head. And right then, in that vulnerable moment, Tyler opened the bathroom door without knocking, catching me in an intimate moment with myself. Our eyes met in the mirror, and neither of us could, or wanted to, look away. The silence between us was almost tangible. We stayed like that for seconds that felt like hours, until Tyler hesitantly stepped into the bathroom. His breathing was clearly altered, his chest rising and falling beneath the white t-shirt he was wearing. "Sorry, I didn't know you were here," he mumbled, but he didn't even mention leaving. I quickly adjusted myself, feeling the heat rush to my cheeks. "It's okay. I should have locked the door." But there was something in the air, a charged tension that made every movement seem loaded with meaning. Tyler ran his hand through his brown hair, a gesture I'd seen him do when he was nervous. His eyes, however, weren't showing embarrassment. There was something else, a curiosity, maybe even a silent invitation. "Do you always get up so early?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. It was a trivial question, but his voice was deeper than usual. "Work habit," I replied, trying to keep the conversation on safe ground. "Even on vacation, my body doesn't switch off the internal alarm." Tyler smiled, that half smile I'd started noticing over the past few days. "I was thinking about making breakfast today, you know, as a thank you for spending time with me these days." "You don't need to thank me, Ty." The nickname slipped out naturally, like when we were younger. "I'm enjoying rediscovering my little brother." "Rediscovering?" He raised an eyebrow, curious. "I don't think you ever really got to know me, Danny." The tone of his voice, the use of that childhood nickname, the intensity in his look. Everything created an atmosphere charged with unsaid possibilities. I had to look away, trying to sort my thoughts. When I looked back at him, Tyler had moved a few steps closer. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, trying to ignore how my heart was racing. "I mean, you still see me as the 12-year-old you left behind, not who I am now." Tyler was less than a meter away, close enough for me to notice details I hadn't before. A tiny scar above his right eyebrow, the exact shade of green in his eyes, the way his jawline had become more defined over the years. "I'm trying to know who you are now," I admitted. "And I'm surprised." Surprised how? I swallowed hard, feeling caught in a moment of decision. The words I chose now could change everything between us. "Surprised at how much you've grown, at how different you are." His gaze didn't waver. Different, as in better or worse. Different in a way I didn't expect. A slow smile formed on his lips. "I'll take that as a compliment." Tyler then stepped back, returning to the door. "The coffee's going to get cold. I'll see you downstairs when it's ready." And just like that, he left, leaving me with thoughts and feelings I never imagined having about my own brother. I took a deep breath, trying to regain control. What was happening to me? What was happening between us? In the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. Tyler had made a full meal: scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, and orange juice. He was facing away from me when I entered, busy pouring coffee into 2 mugs. "Is all this for me?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He turned with a smile. "For both of us. I thought we could eat on the porch. It's a beautiful day." The normality of the situation contrasted sharply with the tension we had left in the bathroom. Maybe I was just imagining things, misinterpreting the signals. Maybe it was just the result of 3 years apart, trying to reconnect with a brother I no longer really knew. On the porch, we sat side by side in wicker chairs, admiring the lake sparkling under the morning sun. The silence was comfortable until Tyler broke it. "Have you ever felt something you know you shouldn't?" he asked, staring out into the distance. I nearly choked on my coffee. "What do you mean?" "You know, when something seems forbidden, but at the same time, it feels so right you can't ignore it." My heart started pounding again. "I guess we all go through inner conflicts at some point, Ty." Then he turned to me, his eyes searching mine. "What do you do when that happens? Do you ignore it or follow your feelings?" The question hung between us like a storm cloud. I set my mug on the side table, buying time to think. "Depends on what we're talking about," I finally replied. Some lines weren't meant to be crossed. Tyler held my gaze for a long moment before turning back to the lake. "I understand." The rest of breakfast passed with lighter conversations about his plans for college, my work, and childhood memories. But that initial conversation stayed like an undercurrent, flowing unseen beneath our seemingly innocent interactions. That afternoon, we decided to walk down to the lake. The day was perfect, not too hot, not too cold, the kind of day that feels full of possibility. "Remember when Dad used to teach us how to skip stones here?" Tyler asked as we walked along the shore. "Yeah, I remember. You never managed to get a stone to skip more than twice." He laughed, a genuine sound that made me smile. "And you always bragged about getting 5 or 6. "It was my right as the older brother," I joked. Tyler bent down to pick up a smooth stone. With a fluid wrist flick, he sent it skimming across the lake. The stone bounced 7 times before sinking. Things change, bro. There was something in that little demonstration, in those simple words, that carried a symbolism I couldn't ignore. Tyler wasn't just the kid who used to live in my shadow anymore. He'd grown into his own person, a person who, honestly, both intrigued and attracted me in ways I shouldn't have felt. When the sun began to set, we headed back home. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, creating an almost magical atmosphere. "I think I'll take a shower," Tyler announced when we arrived. "I'll whip up something for dinner then," I replied. He nodded and went upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen, idly stirring ingredients for a simple pasta, but my mind was somewhere else. On the looks, the unspoken words, the growing tension that seemed to fill every corner of the house. 20 minutes later, I heard his footsteps coming down the stairs. When I turned, Tyler was standing at the entrance to the kitchen, his hair still damp from the shower, wearing nothing but sweatpants. Droplets of water still glistened on his bare chest. "Need any help?" he asked, but there was something in his eyes that suggested it wasn't just about making dinner. "You could grab the plates," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. He moved closer, passing by me to reach the cupboard above the sink. His arm brushed lightly against mine, a casual touch that sent shivers down my skin. The smell of his shampoo, the same one we used when we were little, stirred up a confusing mix of nostalgia and desire. "Danny," he murmured, so close I could feel his breath. "You feel it too, don't you?" I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to muster the strength to deny, to push away what was happening between us. But when I opened them again, Tyler was even closer. His green eyes locked on mine with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. "This can't happen, Ty," I whispered, though I could hear the uncertainty in my own voice. "Why not?" he asked so quietly I almost couldn't hear. "It's not like we're hurting anyone. You're 17. I'm your older brother. I'm old enough to know what I want," he replied. "And I want you, Danny. Since you came back, I can't think about anything else." His words broke down the last of the barriers I'd been trying to keep up. Without thinking, my hand found his face, my thumb softly tracing his cheek. He closed his eyes at the touch, tilting his head slightly into my palm. "This is crazy," I murmured. "Maybe it is," he agreed, opening his eyes. "But I've never felt anything so real. I can't say who moved first. Maybe we just moved at the same time, drawn by a force we could no longer resist." Our lips met hesitantly at first, almost fearful. But that initial contact quickly grew into something deeper, something more urgent. My hands found their way to his waist, pulling him closer as he tangled his fingers in my hair. It was like every sensation was amplified. The warmth of his skin against mine, the taste of his lips, the soft sound that escaped his throat when I deepened the kiss. Tyler was the first to pull away, breathing heavily, his eyes dark with a desire that mirrored my own. "Bedroom?" he asked in a husky voice. I should have said no. I should have stopped it right there. But I just nodded, following him upstairs to the room that used to be mine back in our teenage years. The door barely closed behind us when we began kissing again, this time with even more urgency. My hands roamed over his body, discovering every plane and curve. He was so responsive, every touch of mine drawing sighs and small moans that only heightened my own desire. We fell onto the bed, a tangle of limbs and heavy breaths. Time seemed to stop, and the world outside melted away. There were only the two of us, exploring each other in ways I'd never imagined possible. Our bodies moved in a perfect, forbidden synchronicity, as if the entire universe had conspired for this secret moment. Every touch between us burned more intensely than the last, erasing any memory of us being siblings. "Don't regret it. Not even for a second," he whispered against my skin, his warm breath sending waves of pleasure through me, as the reality of what we'd done and the intensity of what was still to come hung in the air like pure electricity. Afterward, lying side by side, reality slowly started seeping back in. What had we done? How could we ever go back? The answer came when Tyler turned to me, his face calm and without an ounce of regret. "I don't regret it," he said, as if he'd read my mind. "Not for a second." I pulled him closer, kissing his forehead. "I don't either," I admitted. "But what do we do now?" He shrugged, resting his head on my chest. "I don't know. All I know is I don't want this to end when you go back to Chicago. The weight of that reality, that I'd have to leave in a few days, that we'd have to hide what we felt, that society would never understand, pressed down on us. But in that moment, with Tyler in my arms, I felt a certainty I'd never known before. "Let's figure it out," I promised. "One day at a time." The distant sound of a car made us freeze. We looked at each other in panic. "Is that them?" Tyler asked, already getting up. "They can't be. They said they'd be back tomorrow." But the sound of doors closing and familiar voices confirmed our fears. Our parents had returned a day earlier than expected. In a flurry of movements, we got dressed, made the bed, and tried to act as normal as possible. We had barely made it downstairs when the front door opened. "Kids, we're home," my mom announced, carrying a travel bag. Aunt Martha wasn't feeling well, so we decided to come back early. "Great to see you," I replied, hoping my voice sounded natural. "We were just about to have dinner." Tyler nodded next to me, his face composed in a casual greeting that revealed nothing of what had happened minutes earlier. As we helped bring the bags inside, we exchanged looks full of meaning. What we had shared had changed everything between us. There was no going back now. That night, lying in my bed alone, I replayed every moment, every sensation. Part of me felt guilty, aware of all the lines we'd crossed. But a bigger part of me felt more alive than ever, as if I'd finally found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Tyler knocked softly on my door hours later, when everyone was already asleep. He came in quietly and slipped under the covers beside me. "We can't," I whispered. even though my body was already responding to his closeness. "I just want to be close to you," he replied, nestling against my chest. "Just for tonight." And so we stayed, wrapped in each other in the darkness, as I wondered how something that should feel so wrong could feel so incredibly right. The next few days brought a new normal to our home. In front of our parents, Tyler and I kept up the act of siblings who were just rebuilding their friendship after years apart. We talked about trivial matters during dinner, commented on movies while watching TV together, and occasionally exchanged teasing remarks that made our parents smile nostalgically. But there was a secret code in our looks. A casual touch when passing the salad at the table meant so much more. "I'm going to help Tyler with his math homework," turned into stolen moments in his room, a locked door, and books left open in case someone knocked unexpectedly. At night, when the house fell silent, one of us always found our way to the other's room. Sometimes just to sleep in each other's arms, feeling each other's breath. Other times to rediscover that physical connection we'd established, each time more intense, harder to deny or resist. "What will happen when you leave?" Tyler asked one night, his voice almost inaudible against my neck. That question had hovered between us since our first encounter. There were only 3 days left until my return to Chicago, to my adult life far away, to the responsibilities waiting for me. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I just know I don't want to lose this." He propped himself up on one elbow, his face partly lit by the moonlight streaming through the window. "I could visit you, during school breaks. And what would we tell our parents? That I'm considering colleges in Chicago." He smiled. "It wouldn't be a complete lie." I ran my hand through his hair, feeling its texture between my fingers. "And then? When you really go off to college? When you start your own life?" Tyler frowned. "Why are you talking like you have an expiration date?" "Because maybe I do, Ty." I sat on the bed, trying to organize thoughts that had been chasing me. "You're 17. You're about to discover a whole new world out there. New people, new experiences. I don't want you to get stuck with something that started in a 2-week vacation. Don't talk like it's just a passing fancy." His voice held an unexpected firmness. "What I feel for you didn't start when you came back home. It started years ago, when I began figuring out who I really was, when your rare visits became the highlight of my years." His words hit me hard. I had never considered that his feelings could have deeper roots, that they weren't just a result of our recent closeness. "Still," I insisted, though with less conviction, "distance will change everything. Only if we let it." He stepped closer, holding my face in his hands. "Danny, I'm not saying it will be easy. I know there will be obstacles. I know we'll have to hide, lie, that the world will never understand. But I also know I've never felt about anyone what I feel for you." I looked at him, really looked, and I saw not the little brother I'd left behind, but a young man with determination in his eyes, and a maturity that outshone many of my college friends. "I'm scared," I finally confessed. "Scared of hurting you. Scared of being selfish. Scared that this will eventually destroy us. Living in fear is not really living, Danny." He rested his forehead against mine. "I'd rather take the risk and try than spend my life wondering what could have been." In that moment, something solidified between us. It wasn't just physical desire or the thrill of the forbidden. It was a deeper connection, a mutual understanding, a shared decision to face whatever comes together. The next morning, I woke up alone. Tyler had already retreated to his room before our parents woke, a precaution that had become part of our routine. I went downstairs for coffee and found only my mom in the kitchen. "Good morning, dear," she said with a smile, serving me a cup of coffee. "Did you sleep well?" "Really well," I replied, hoping not to sound suspicious. "Tyler left early for the library. He said he had a project to finish." She looked at me with that maternal expression as if she could see right through us. "You two have been spending a lot of time together, haven't you?" I swallowed hard. "Yeah, we're making up for lost time." She nodded slowly. "It's good to see you close again. Tyler missed you so much when you went to college. You two always had a special connection." If only she knew how special that connection had become, I thought, my chest tightening. "I'm thinking of visiting Chicago soon," I mentioned, trying to sound casual. "To see the city, maybe check out some universities." "Chicago?" She raised her eyebrows. "I thought you were looking at the state school." "I'm keeping my options open," I replied with a shrug. "Danny said he could show me some cool spots." Tyler walked in at that moment, carrying some books. Our eyes met briefly, and I had to suppress a smile as I realized he was already planting the seeds of our plan. "Well, I think that's wonderful." my mom said while serving more coffee. You two could spend more time together? If only she knew. The last 2 days passed in a blur of stolen moments and preparations for my departure. I helped Tyler with his college essay, which was authentic, although frequently interrupted by kisses. Packed my bags, and had long talks with my parents about work and future plans. On the night before I left, my parents organized a small farewell dinner. We had Dad's favorite roast, laughed over old stories, and pretended that my departure was just a normal parting between family members. Tyler stayed quiet for most of the meal, though he tried to smile whenever eyes turned his way. Under the table, his hand would occasionally find mine, a subtle touch that communicated everything we couldn't say out loud. Later, when everyone had retired for the night, he appeared in my room one last time. We didn't talk much. Words didn't seem adequate for what we felt. Instead, we held each other in the darkness, memorizing every touch, every sigh, every heartbeat. "I love you," he whispered against my lips as dawn began to light up the room. "Never doubt it." "I love you too," I replied, realizing it was the first time we'd spoken aloud what had grown between us. He smiled, a sad smile full of promises, before quietly returning to his room. The morning of my departure had that familiar atmosphere of goodbyes. Suitcases in the trunk, tight hugs, promises to call as soon as I got to Chicago. My mom cried a little, as she always did. My dad patted me on the back and reminded me to check the oil in the car regularly. And then it was time to say goodbye to Tyler. "Don't forget to study for your exams," I said out loud, pulling him into a hug that, to any observer, would have seemed nothing more than an affectionate sibling embrace. "As if you were ever an exemplary student," he shot back with a smile, keeping up the act. We hugged a little longer than we probably should have, but no one seemed to notice. When we finally let go, I saw in his eyes all the words we hadn't said. "See you soon," I promised, and only the two of us knew the real meaning behind those words. I got in the car and drove off, waving one last time at my family gathered on the front porch. In the rearview mirror, I watched Tyler until he disappeared from view when I turned the corner. The road to Chicago never felt so long. Every mile increased the physical distance between us. But strangely, I didn't feel we were moving apart. Something had fundamentally changed inside me during those 2 weeks. Something that couldn't be measured in miles or erased by time. I turned on the radio, letting the music fill the silence of the car. My phone buzzed in the passenger seat. A message from Tyler. "I'm already missing you. 43 days until spring break. I'm counting." I smiled, feeling a familiar warmth spread across my chest. I didn't know what the future held for us. I didn't know how we'd navigate the inevitable obstacles that lay ahead. I didn't know if the world would ever be ready to accept what we'd found in each other. But I knew that what happened in those 2 weeks wasn't just a fleeting phase or a momentary mistake. It was the start of something that, despite all the complications, felt truer than anything I'd ever experienced. As I drove toward the horizon, I thought about how life often surprises us in the most unexpected moments, how connections can form and evolve when we least expect them, how love, in all its complex forms, finds ways that challenge our understanding and expectations. These 2 weeks at home started as a simple family visit, and ended up completely redefining my understanding of relationships, desires, and what it truly means to love someone. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know exactly how we'd make it work, but I was willing to try. For Tyler, for us. And so, as the familiar countryside gave way to the first signs of the big city on the horizon, I sent a simple reply. "Me too. Every minute counts." The road ahead seemed like the perfect symbol for what awaited us, full of unknown twists, potentially dangerous in spots, but always leading somewhere worth reaching. If you liked this story of self-discovery and unexpected connections, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more narratives exploring the complexities of human relationships. Share in the comments if you've ever experienced a moment that completely transformed your understanding of love and connection.